So it's that time of the year again when one movie season ends and a new one begins. And to mark that event and take stock of what happened in 2025, I'm joined by my guest Duarte for the 8th year in a row
Damn,
to actually,
it's time.
yeah, not to celebrate the Oscars by themselves, but to actually talk about movies in general and what lies ahead. So thank you for being here for the 8th time.
Thanks for having me. I always look forward to doing this with you.
Don't lie.
True stuff.
So if we look back at 2025, I mean, I have opinions as always, and we always play the role of the kind cop and the cold hand of reality cop in these segments. But if I had to ask you to share your more positive, hopefully positive view and about 2025 in movies, what would you tell us?
I actually think it was kind of a mixed bag because in reality, I think it was a good year for movies.
Mhm.
I just don't think a lot of them panned out the way I would like them to. So obviously there was a lot of releases that all of us got really excited about. And I've named a few of them that didn't really make it into the Oscars. Some of them were really disappointing. I'm thinking about like Jay Kelly, for instance.
Mm.
The Daniel Craig Wake Up Dead Man as well. I thought it
Mm.
was a bit of a disappointment, to me at least. House of Dynamite, Materialists, Life of Chuck,
Mm.
Fantastic Four. I mean, these are all films that got people excited, but for me, they didn't really make quite the cut. But then you had other films that are not part of this Oscar conversation that were also a lot of fun to watch. 28 years later was one of them. Mission Impossible, Smashing Machine,
Mm.
and Sorry Baby as well.
Mm.
Are some of them. So yeah, I think actually overall it was good in the sense of we had enough films to get us into the cinemas. And obviously a lot of quality here in the Oscars for us to discuss.
I agree.
Oh
Wow,
wow.
it's a first.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I will agree with you. I think, and this is part of the narrative that will accompany us. I think it's the divide between critics and audiences, and how do you bring audiences back after what happened during the ill-forming habits of COVID of watching everything at home.
Mhm.
I think that yeah, it's simply it's needed to have this delicate balance. And look, you missed Superman, which was also released last year, and
Mhm.
I know you kind of enjoyed it.
Mhm.
But these movies, I kind of tend to see their need to exist. Even I'm not the target audience, and that's okay. But I'm with you. There's this need for quality event movies that drag people. It's no longer, oh, we have an IP and we're gonna stamp it on a movie, and boom, it makes money. This is no longer 2007, and therefore we need them. At the same time, it was a mixed bag, much like I think 2024 was. There were some surprises, and as always, I think for people like us, and who enjoy both the commercial titles and the not so commercial titles, it's always, yes, it's always good to see what comes from the movie festivals and the little surprises. Because even now, as we speak, there are probably terrific releases that we don't even know the titles of
Mhm.
planned for the rest of the year. And this to me, it's great because we can't really tell. Like last year at this time, we couldn't foresee no other choice, or maybe one battle after another we did, but that's a whole high profile title. So I think that keeps things interesting.
Mhm.
And regarding the quality, I'm hoping that no strikes will take place this year, and that the output continues to match and to give different people different things and different reasons to go to the movies.
Mhm.
And with that in mind, we start with the first category. As I said, we always take the Oscars as a chance to take stock of performances, movies, and so we're going to go category by category, most of them above the line. And we start with Best Actress in a Supporting Role. Duarte, take it away.
I think this is a really solid category. I've seen all these films. I have to say, I was heavily surprised with one name in it, and this is with Yumi Musaku in
Mm.
Sinners. I think most people were really surprised, to be honest. She did really well. I thought she was great, but one of the biggest, there were at least two big omissions for me that would easily take one of the spots in this category. And those were of Chase Infinity and Chase Infinity for One Battle After Another, and Odessa Young for Marty Supreme. But I mean, ultimately, looking at these five names, they're all pretty solid. I mean, I don't know if I should start with the standout one, but I guess the one that's really left a mark in me was Inga for Sentimental Value. I think she was by far my favorite performance in this category. If I was to name also a big surprise in a positive way, was Amy Madigan for Weapons. I thought her character was absolutely hilarious and terrifying at the same time. And also, I just think it's really refreshing to see these kind of roles get a nod in the Oscars. We often take ourselves, or they take themselves a bit too seriously, and they don't look at these roles as something that qualifies, I guess, for these kinds of awards. Even though I think they're trying to make an effort to diversify, bring other types of characters, bring other types of genres. But even then, I'm not entirely sure if a couple of years ago we would be looking back at a role like this and think, "Oh, this is going to be nominated for an Oscar." You could see the push for it, right? I think a lot of people were talking online, saying, "Oh my God, Amy deserves all the praise, all the awards, and all that stuff." Well, at least the nods, not the actual awards, but at least being part of that conversation. And I was really happy to see it. I'm all up for it because I absolutely loved Weapons as a movie, and she was a big part of the reason why I had such a great time watching it.
My counterpoint. Look, I've taken everything that you've said, so let's address this step by step. I think it's a very solid category, and I have no comments to add because Chase Infinity or Infinity, I don't know how to pronounce the name, but apparently that came from Toy Story. I was told. I
Wow.
don't know if it's a joke or not, but that it came from Infinity and Beyond.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll need to verify that. Not fake news. I'm not confirming nor denying it. I do think that she is a contender at the BAFTAs and Golden Globes and SAG in a leading performance. So she was pushed by Warner, so she would never be featured in this category.
Okay.
So that's one thing I would say. With that in mind, I mean, I look at Teyana Taylor. Honestly, she didn't have much screen time. Yes, she's a critical part of One Battle After Another. In my top 5, actually put Regina King, who I think had a more relevant, if subdued, role in the movie One Battle After Another. But again, I knew that Teyana Taylor, and she's actually the front runner. So I agree with you. Just wanted to,
Of course.
just on
The Chase.
yeah.
Well, because you know what? I actually didn't really pay that much attention to how the categories were stacked up in previous award ceremonies, because when I saw the movie for the first time, I instantly started naming, okay, these people are definitely going to make it in these categories. And I actually remember, I think for me, the standout, and we'll get to this later, but it was Sean Penn. And then Chase for me was like an incredible surprise. And given how she was positioned in the film, I wasn't really able to see her as
A lead.
a leading character. And in some ways, I'm actually quite happy that well, I guess if she was up for that contention, then it would be difficult to make a bigger case for it, because here I really feel like that she would absolutely have space for it. Whereas in the leading category, and we'll get to that later,
Yeah,
I think things probably would be a bit more difficult. Certainly with the idea of actually winning it, but
for sure.
yeah.
So I totally agree with what you said. It's like that conversation we had years ago about Michelle Williams in The Fablemans, lead versus supporting, and where do you have the chances, and that's studio politics, and we're not getting into that.
Well,
But I agree with you, right? So it's really that matter of the visibility and how they decide to run the race. When it comes to Sinners, and this is, look, I like the movie. I know we're talking about specific performances here, but does it merit 16 nominations? Absolutely not. And that comes with the visual effects, and also performance-wise, I'm not gonna argue, because I think it was very good at that level, and in many aspects.
Mhm.
I just don't think a record-breaking 16, like best visual effects, best sound. I mean, sure, whatever.
No, I mean, those categories I think make sense. I think when they start stacking up all these nominations, especially like on the acting side, I mean, controversially, I don't think a lot of these people deserved. 'Cause I think they work amazingly well as an ensemble. Like for me, casting wise, it was absolutely perfect. I know we're introducing the
Yes,
casting category now. I think Sinners would be one of those.
it will be
Uh,
probably the winner.
yeah, and it's brilliant. I mean, in that sense, I think everyone just really comes up and more than just deliver their role, they exceed it. They go above and beyond. But comparing to a lot of the other performances that we've had throughout the year, where you have actual actors who carry a movie,
Yes,
because this movie doesn't need to be carried by a particular actor, because
it's
everyone
plot
works together.
driven, not character. Well,
Exactly,
it's a mix, but still mostly plot. I
exactly.
agree. I agree. And to that point, look, I remember her role. I don't remember. Perhaps I remember more the role of Miles Canton and the role of Haley Steinfeld than I do remember her role. However, I won't argue here because there's nobody else. Maybe Tanya Maria. I would include her in this
Okay, that's
category.
cool.
But and she
How can
actually,
you hate her? She's
I
great. She's
know the
amazing.
woman deserved to
Yeah.
be here. But anyways, I think this is justified. And when it comes to Amy Madigan and Weapons, look, I didn't care about the movie. I didn't care about the movie. I thought the movie is a bit too in your nose, and it's fine for I don't know. It didn't scratch where I itch when it comes to horror movies.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Amy Madigan herself, I think the movie and her attitude, everything is a bit campy and over the top. She's nominated not for playing out Gladys, but for playing Betty Davis in the later years of her career, like with the wig and the whole thing. That's Betty Davis. I was seeing that and I was like, wow,
Mhm.
fantastic. So look, fine, you're rewarding something that's campy and outlandish, and I think ultimately you're
Not,
rewarding negative behaviors because now she's going to have a spin-off.
I don't think. Oh, that's great. I
Yeah,
love that.
no, you're going to milk the cow
I,
dry.
I mean, I never liked that idea, but actually, I was really fascinated by the character in particular. And you talk about campy, and that's true. There's a lot to it as well. But there's this other side to her, which is also very terrifying. I mean, I actually thought that she would sort of like get us all a bit nervous and on the edge of our seats. Again, I think this movie obviously resonated with me in a different way than you. So perhaps for you, you're like, this character's not really doing anything for me. But at least from my point of view, when I was watching it at the cinema, I was a bit creeped out by her. And I thought it was great. Also, I think there's the element of surprise as well, because I really didn't see this character blossom the way it did. I was not really familiar with Amy Madigan's work as well.
Hmm.
So obviously, this for me was a massive introduction into her, and also to make me look back at her work. So all of what this performance brought into my life, I thought was great. It just got me to look more into the work, into the body of work of a particular actor who I think actually did amazing. And again, I think as amazing as the movie is, in my opinion, and it is, she really stands out above everyone else. So again, when we were talking about Sinners, if, it's difficult to have like a standout performance because everyone just brings their A game. Whereas here, you could just feel like this person is just leaps ahead of everyone else.
I agree. Despite my opinion about weapons, I agree that the movie is defined by Annie Gladys and the dynamic that she brings.
Annie Gladys.
Annie Gladys. But yeah, I mean, fine. I'm not going to argue that she shouldn't be here. To me, it was just like a movie that was pushed on audiences, not in a traditional way. And it was just I don't know. It's been done, and these days horror movies come to me in terms of is this a Wikipedia movie, i.e., something I can read when I'm
I completely understand where you're coming from because we've discussed a lot of these
yeah
movies as well. Like I remember we talked about Long Legs and a few others.
yes
They're a bit of that push. But actually, I really think that this again for me because I know we're thinking differently here, just really stood out. And actually, you were saying like, oh, this was being pushed into the audiences, but it was done in a way where actually there was a huge excitement about it. And I whether the movie is a bit of a flop, like perhaps both you and I agreed on Long Legs, or whether the movie does great, it's actually quite nice when the job behind the scenes is executed in a way that creates buzz. I'm not so much against it anymore because whatever it takes to bring people into the cinemas to get that full experience and to get people excited, I'm all up for that. I mean, obviously, I don't like sort of like being manipulated in a way where they're giving us crap
Disguised as you put
exactly.
lipstick on a pig.
But when you get something like this, which in my opinion was really good, and most people seem to like it and whatnot, and also like the results they had in the box office,
Yes.
how well it did for Warner Brothers. I mean, all these things are just positives for us to like to continue betting in the movie experience of going into the cinema theaters and actually having a good communal time.
Fair enough. I'll concede that point, and I think in that context, Weapons did its job as a movie. As I mentioned, it didn't work for me. I do agree that Amy Madigan is the standout point and probably the thing I remember about the movie the most, because for better or worse, the loudness of the character sticks with you. And when it comes to the contrasts and carrying a movie, and that's why I left these two for last. So Elle Fanning and Inge Ibsdotter Lillhaas. I think.
That's a good pronunciation.
Thank you. 8 months in Norway.
Yeah.
You pick up a thing or two. You should hear. Well,
I
anyways,
didn't even try that.
no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
so scared of
It's
doing
all good. The little bit. Anyways, I think it's interesting to see the two sides of a different coin, and these two characters against Renate Reinsve. The way they position, it's like she's in the middle, battling her father,
it.
and these two are kind of like orbiting.
Mhm.
And whilst Elf, and both of them are quite quiet, but I think Inga comes out as, I don't know how to say this, but like kind of the member of the jury, that will make the decision, and she's sitting there observing everything. I think she's great at that,
She
and
knows something.
she knows something, and she represents something that the other sister doesn't have. I'm not going to spoil anymore. And also at the same time, the basis for Elle Fanning's character
Mhm.
in very meta, right? The character Elle Fanning's character will play. Jesus, I got a headache. Just saying this sentence out loud in Sentimental Value, and I think it's very interesting to see the dynamic of these two characters. I think Inga wins with that, with the role her character plays in the movie.
Mhm.
The thing that she worked with her father, even though she doesn't want to be an actress. And then you have the other sister, Renata's character, that actually is an actress but doesn't want to work with the father. So it's quite. I find it a very interesting dynamic, and find it very interesting the way it was used, and how her character, you remember her even though she doesn't do anything
Yeah.
loud, or she's not, I don't think she even has that much screen time, but when she's there, she makes an impact. And Elle Fanning, yeah, I think it's great to see her recognized here. I think she always carries that little you know, she's there, again, quiet, but there's something about her that just, I don't know, it gets to me. So
Yeah.
I'm very glad to see her both recognized here. And when it comes to sentimental value in the context of this category, your thoughts?
No, I think it's brilliant. I mean, the quality of the acting talent that you have on display is absolutely fantastic. With all three women in particular being just really standouts. Stellan is great, of course, and I know we'll get to him later on. But yeah, I was actually a lot more gripped to some of these female characters, even though the father obviously is a massive presence in this film. But yeah, I found myself orbiting a lot more towards Inga throughout. I don't know. There was also something really relatable about her as well. I think we've all seen this kind of like family dynamics where you have someone who's a bit of more of a mediator who tries to not really rock the boat so much, and obviously you have someone who's a bit more rebel, a bit more loud, someone who obviously, in all these relationships, you will have sometimes someone who clearly seems to be a bit bitter towards someone, and so those family dynamics are really well illustrated, and I think that's well conveyed through the acting that they present. One thing I would like to mention about Elle Fanning, and this will make a bridge to someone who I just want to give a little nod.
Sure.
So one of my favorite scenes in the movie with Elle was when she was doing a bit of a reading, and she gets really emotional, like it flipped as a switch, right?
Yeah.
And obviously to pull that off when you're pretending to pretend, again, like you were saying, this whole meta angle.
Mannerism.
It's so really well conveyed, and it brings me back to one scene that really stood out to me as well during the I'm not going to call it the award season, but as I started like watching a lot of the movies trying to prepare for the award
Sure.
season, was when I saw Jay Kelly, and there's
Mm.
that You've seen it, right?
I haven't seen Jake.
Okay, so there's a beautiful scene. So the movie overall, I think, is pretty average, and I'm not surprised it didn't get any love in the Oscars, and that includes Adam Sandler as well. Even though I might have him as a potential candidate for his category, but there is a scene. There's a brilliant scene where George Clooney meets up with a character played by Billy Crudup. And basically, the context of these two guys is that they used to study acting together and they used to be best mates. Clearly, something went off the rails. You'll find out as the movie progresses. But George Clooney, clearly the actor who's made it in life, and he's like a big star, whereas the other one is now like a dentist or something like that. They're talking about the past. And he's like, man, you were such a great actor. It's such a shame that you sort of like went on to do something else, because I could just see you read like a menu. Go on, just do it for me one more time. Like, read off the menu. And Billy Crudup starts reading off the menu in such a powerful, vivid, beautiful way that as he is getting teared up and emotional, you can't help but also feel emotional. I'm getting goosebumps just honestly, just talking about, because I just thought it was such an incredible scene for him to actually read like a menu that says like pancakes, maple syrup, and you're just getting really moved. So the power of turning nothing into something extraordinary is really cool. And I felt that with Elle in a different ballgame, because obviously she's in the context of a better film, surrounded by all these pieces that are really working towards that moment. But I just love that bit of, when I think about the scenes that I've seen over this last year or so, that Elle Fanning scene is one of the ones that I really get a lot of pleasure off. And it makes me think of the Billy Crudup scene as well in J. Kelly. Anyway, that was a long story.
No.
I want to share that.
Dude, I'll just add, I'll have to see J. Kelly, and I'll just say that I've actually, in my top 5 for this category, I've added Tania Maria from The Secret Agent. We'll get to that movie in a bit. And I've also added Emily Blunt in The Smashing Machine. I think she is great in kind of a Marissa Tomei in the wrestler kind of way.
Well, I tried.
Fair enough.
Didn't buy it.
But when it comes to this category, who would you pick? And then the consensus of who do we think will win?
I mean, I would pick Inge.
Same.
I think in terms of actually winning is going to be Teyana. Or dark horse for me will still be Inge. I mean, this is maybe just my deep-seated desire to see her win. So I'm not giving up on her just yet. But yeah, if I'm looking at what we've seen so far from the award ceremonies, and I know I said I didn't pay much attention, but
you did.
It was impossible not to notice.
Yes.
These awards with Teyana, because she obviously did really well and got lots of praise. And you know, I'm thrilled for her because I really liked her. And so yeah, it's nice to see. Nice to see this continuation of success, I guess, for her as well.
Absolutely. And I think, same, Inge would be my pick. Teyana will probably win. And with that, we move to Best Actor in a Leading Role. Now, it's an interesting one. I've seen, well, pretty much 4 out of 5. You've seen Blue Moon, of course. Let's take this step by step. So, shall we start the Marty Supreme bash now or later? I mean, let's start with Timmy Boy. Why not? Timbo. Let's start with the little Mr. Canary colored yellow suit.
You know, I love him. I think he's such a wonderful actor. It gives me great pleasure just to see him do just about anything. I mean, sometimes I remember there was a point after I saw Call Me By Your Name where I was really into his performance and into that movie in particular, where I got myself lost in YouTube watching some other old clips of him, and I saw some stuff of him in theater classes, and I just thought that he always seemed to be such a dedicated actor from a really young age and always showing lots of promise, lots of talent. Obviously, I didn't see the work from start to finish, but the little snippets that I saw were really impressive. And so gradually over the years, as I saw him progress as an actor, I kept thinking that he was always really good. I loved him in The King. I loved him in Beautiful Boy, even though I didn't love the film per se.
That much,
you know, thought he was obviously great in Call Me By Your Name. I didn't see
Dune.
No, Dune. Well, Dune, I thought he was great, but just not well casted, because I just found it weird seeing a little boy commanding an army like that, and I just
Well, he was about Cal McLaughlin's age when
no,
David Lynch cast him.
but he just looks very frail. You know what I mean? Like I just every time you had him in the battle,
Yeah,
doing a battle scene or whatever, I just feel like this guy's going to be wiped. So
and he
anyway,
didn't.
but it's different. That's a whole different conversation.
Eh,
In this particular film, I thought he was really good. It was quite nice to go in to a movie like this with high expectations, and that's always something that plays against you because you know the higher your expectations, the more you're exposing yourself to disappointment. And actually, I left the cinema very satisfied, more than satisfied. I was very, you know, I liked it, really liked them. So I know that you had a huge problem with the movie overall.
No, I don't have a huge problem with the movie. Like, I make it sound worse than it is because,
It's fun.
yes, I mean that's what that gives me views, right? Yeah, that's why you guys are watching this. I think, look, first of all, Dune works despite his existence there, so we agree on it. I think that there's a massive hype, and you know, for years I could never understand why Hollywood hated Warren Beatty, and then Bradley Cooper came along, and I get a bit, but he's talented and he works as a writer, as a director, everything. He just had a movie released last year. But now with Timothée Chalamet, I get it. The guy, he's just, I don't know, you cannot explain it. And it's not the pretty boy image or anything. To me, it's just the fact that he's trying too hard. And in this movie, the movie works, right?
Trying too hard in which way? What are you talking about?
Just for the prestige, for the Oscar, for the oh, I'm under 30 or I just turned 30 and I've been nominated 3 times. Congrats. Good for you, man. But were they all deserving? I mean, it's not a big stretch seeing him playing a mumbling, dull-eyed guy like Bob Dylan. Man, that's easy. Like we could all do it.
That's not even
So I've never seen, and actually it explained a lot because for 12 years, I've never understood why, well, some things clicked, but I never understood why I didn't like Interstellar. And last year I realized he was in it. Yeah. So finally, I was like, now I know. So it was, the seed was planted many years ago. I'm joking, of course, but I never realized that he was in the movie. And to me, look, Marty Supreme it's an interesting story. I love it the first time I've seen it when it was called The Apprenticeship of Judy Kravitz. And I've said this time and time again. And I don't think it brings anything new. I think it's a movie like the ones that David O. Russell used to make, you know. Well, we have a starting point and then we'll let the story flow. And that's pretty much what happens. And if that's the improvisational tone of the movie, fine. Then Timothée Chalamet did something okay. I think he plays a character that is too close to home or just the whole energy of I want something. It mirrors his life of wanting an Oscar. But I'll concede.
But when I think the other way around, I mean, a lot of what you're saying seems to me that was developed around the actual character because I think for a very long time, even though he was getting all this success and already being named twice for Academy Awards, he was, you know, to a degree understated, modest. I mean, yes, he did have those comments at one point saying, you know, I want to reach greatness. I aim for greatness, but he's not saying like, I'm great, I'm this, I'm that. And all of a sudden the conversation changed, clearly leaning towards promoting this film because the whole persona of like the arrogance, the sheer deluded belief. No, I mean, that was all.
It's all marketing. You're gonna tell me,
and a lot of it was. I mean, if you actually saw some of the campaigns that he was doing,
I did.
Yeah, so it really feels, and a lot of people have been putting this out, and I'm not surprised by it. That it was definitely done around the character that he was playing. It was consistent with the way of thinking, and to actually get people to talk about this because
fair enough.
Whether you like it or not, that's going to start conversations. That's going to get people either like you who are furious and saying, "This guy's a douchebag. Why bring you all this arrogance? You're just a little boy. You have no idea what you're talking about." Or you'll
silence, little boy.
You'll have people who will find it hilarious and this will bring some spice. Others will think, "Oh, well, interesting. This is like a strategy."
Nice Dune reference.
So I find it hilarious, like the whole Zoom.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I'm with you. But anyways, let's leave Timmy B for the final balance. As we look at the rest of the categories,
he's gonna win it. Yeah. Say it again?
No, I don't think he will, because there's the new backlash against the inferior Safdie
He
bro,
will.
and I think little Timmy will pay the bill.
He will. He will win.
Maybe he will.
He will win.
It will be
He will
interesting.
Yeah.
Leo in One Battle After Another.
Bob. He was great. Yeah.
He was great.
Really liked it.
Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle. I never understood that
I
expression.
never understood it either, but it
Just
fits.
Bob's your uncle.
Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
I think he was great as Bob Ferguson. Look, I even thought when people criticized him in Killers of the Flower Moon, I thought the guy was great. I think he is now in that stage. Hopefully he'll collaborate with Michael Mann as we expect him to in Heat 2.
He talked about, well, yeah, of course. Sorry, because
Yes.
that's the conversation going. Because actually he got asked by Jennifer Lawrence in one of those like variety actors, and J-Lo asked him, like, you now work with T. Anderson, so who's like the unicorn that you're chasing, or whatever. She's the particular expression. And Michael Mann's name was thrown in there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his career, and he collaborated with the greats, and he matured again from someone who could be a Timothée Chalamet, because I remember in the 90s, the teens were all fawning over him, but some people were a bit critical. I think he proved, with starting immediately with Catch Me If You Can, that marked a trajectory, and of course, same year as Gangs of New York, marked a rising trajectory where he's now someone you root for to win an Oscar, at least you did up until 10 years ago, when he finally won. And I think the role of Bob Ferguson is terrific. I think it's one of the key highlights of the movie, and he sold the movie, and he's great in it. And again, it's very interesting to see, as in, this could be easily compared to Sinners, and it is, in the sense of like the ensemble versus the individual. But I think everyone here is a magnetic pull in that movie. Diana Taylor, Chase Infinity, or Infinity, Leo, Javier, Benicio, and Sean Penn, and everybody else in the movie. And it still works. They feed off each other, and I think it's just terrific. And he was great in this movie. There was a bit of a buzz about him winning. I think this will be, just for now, a nomination. But
it's a hard sell to have him as a winner, I think.
Yes,
in my books.
Yes, I agree, but definitely a stellar performance, and something very close to Rick Dalton, I would say, in some aspects. The little insecurity masqueraded by nice and high values. And with that, I would feed off Michael B. Jordan in Sinners. I mean, certainly a surprise nomination.
I wouldn't call it a surprise nomination. I think in the same light that we just sort of like painted DiCaprio's role, I think it's also like, again, his success thrives off the back of an ensemble collaboration. I think he deserves the nod for sure. I think Michael B. Jordan is a very talented actor. I really like him.
Yeah.
And I remember, even as I watched him as a little kid doing The Wire, I actually thought that he was always just on point with his performances, and so it was nice to see him grow up over the years.
Yes.
And to play a role like this, twin brothers, very different. Again, another collaboration with Ryan Coogler, who he has worked with on several films.
Yes.
Fruitvale Station and The Creeds and all that. I think
wasn't he also in Black Panther?
He is also in Black Panther as well, playing the villain who I thought he was great. I feel like this collaboration between the two of them always gets the best out of him as an actor, because I really don't see Michael B. Jordan bring the A game as much as he does when he
is directed by Ryan.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, I do think he deserves the nomination. In fact, it's difficult to argue with all these names, and I don't want to skip what we're saying. I'm just so I also keep this in the back of your mind. I have a list of lots of names that I would also throw into this mix.
You'll name names.
Yeah, I'll name names. I'll release a list.
Look, picking up on that, I think the reason why Michael B. Jordan stands out is because so many actors have tried to do the dual twin role. I mean,
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Fair enough. John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. No, but you think of examples like Tom Hardy. You think of just recently Robert De Niro, right? The Alto Knights.
Alto Knights.
And it's very easy to see this as a gimmick and to see something, oh, I just have to, play two different characters and just to be a bit more outlandish and a bit more. I think it's more subtle than that. And I think these two brothers, played by the same actor, they share a lot of values. So, and they share the same experience. So it's not like, oh, yin yang, night and day, opposites.
Quick question, actually. And when you look into this sort of stuff, for instance, with Michael B. Jordan in
Yes.
particular, do you define which of the two characters does he get the nomination for?
I don't know, probably both.
Okay, interesting.
I mean,
Sorry
look,
to cut you off.
I think it's the performance in the movie,
As
not
a okay,
as
okay,
like
fair.
per movie.
Okay,
I mean, he's nominated for playing both Smoke and Stack, right?
Okay.
So
okay, fine.
it
I
is
didn't know
what it
that.
is.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure one of them will be upset if the other one wins.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could complain to Tom Cruise at the
Yeah.
time Dustin Hoffman won and his brother didn't. Him as a brother didn't. But I think it's interesting because it's been a gimmick. Sometimes it's a gimmick, and
Mhm.
it's been attempted so many times that it almost feels like phoned in and fake and shoehorned into a dichotomy, right? Where you say, "Oh, this is the good brother, this is the bad brother, this is." Like now I sound like Schwarzenegger, but it's like
Yeah.
but it's
Ow.
true. One's good, one's bad. So I think the fact that both of them share the same qualities or the similar traits, very similar traits,
Yeah.
it required him to dig deeper as an actor. And to me, that's why he should be recognized. That's why he is recognized. And that's why I thought he elevated the movie into something else, bringing, again, the social component of the story into the movie without it feeling shoehorned.
Yeah. Okay.
So through
Fair.
the two characters. And I mean, we can go into Wagner Moura, who also played a dual role before we covered the one role that you've seen and I didn't, one performance you've seen and I didn't. And Wagner Moura, I mean, just before we started recording this episode, Duarte was talking to me saying that he had a minor complaint.
I was very annoyed with. I mean, does this qualify as a massive spoiler? I'm not sure.
No, like people have kids, and the story of the movie is
Sure.
about him and a kid.
Okay, so as we go on through several years in this film,
The secret agent.
the secret agent. So Wagner Moura is playing a character, and then years down the line, you see is what started to be his young boy in the beginning of the film. He's now grown up, and he's played by Wagner Moura as well. And you would think, yeah, sure, he's the son. I'm sure he'll look similarly to his dad. Yeah, but the son is mixed race, and it's weird to have a mixed race kid in the beginning of the film, and then all of a sudden comes Wagner Moura, white as hell, playing the role of the son. I thought it was a bit weird. Anyway,
I'm going to edit this so that it makes like you're saying something racist.
yeah,
I'll just throw in, for the record, it worked in The Fly too, like father, like son. So I just wanted to throw that in.
sure.
But no, dude, look,
I thought it was great in it.
he does play like a great character, and I heard a lot of complaints about the movie being slow. I think he really elevates it differently than Fernanda Torres. And
Yeah.
look, to me that didn't bother because I guess either I wasn't paying attention to, and if I see photos of myself as a kid versus what I look now, I look way better then. So it's kind of like I don't see that trajectory. It didn't bother me as much as clearly it did, and you and
No, it just annoyed me.
yeah, the minor
It
thing.
didn't detract me from
Okay,
the
fair
film. I
enough.
still loved it.
But I think he's great as first of all, the movie is great, and then I think he's just terrific in the whole perspective and like just the whole way he is kind of like our driver, and the fact that he spends a decent chunk of the movie driving also helps. But he's kind of our tour guide, if it will, to some freak show that is a country under military dictatorship. And I think he's just terrific, and I would love to see him win. Again, this is the opposite of Sinners, the opposite of One Battle After Another, and even Sentimental Value. This is a movie that's entirely driven by his character, similarly to what we've seen last year with I'm Still Here.
Yeah.
Fernando Torres.
With Fernanda, though, you have peaks of acting that just sort of like, I think they scream a lot more sort of like, awards, so to speak. Whereas with him, it's very understated. It feels very real. I
Yeah.
mean, you believe him, and you can see all these different moments. And actually, I always thought it was like like the nuanced acting in really particular scenes. You have something like this is just very vivid in my mind because I just saw it yesterday. There's obviously one scene that's sort of like you just see him sort of like put on the acting hat a lot more vigorously, which is when he's waking up from like the nightmare, for instance, and
Yeah.
he's having all that PTSD and stuff. And I think that's really interesting. But then the bit that I like the most, for instance, is when he's working at the station or near the station, and his name is being called out, and he doesn't flinch. He hesitates a little bit, and that moment was so tense, but so well acted, and just
Hmm.
really delivered. And I was like, oh my god, this is
Yeah.
incredible. And and it's in the small things really that you see the quality there. And he's amazing throughout, but that was like a peak moment for me. Um, but weirdly enough, I was discussing this with my wife yesterday, and we both loved him. And I'm not so, it's just one of those things where perhaps I will agree for sure that he definitely needs to be there. Or rather, I understand why he needs to be there and why he might win. But if I was to replace him with one or two of the other names that I have in mind, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be, like I think there's enough snubs in this category at more or less at the same level.
Sure.
I just don't feel like there's like a one standout, like a massive standout.
And on that, for example, Ethan Hawke in Blue Moon. Do you think it's? I haven't seen the movie, as I told you,
He's
but
great. He's great. He's a flamboyant, fun, interesting, insecure as hell character. It's really. I thought he did really well. I love Ethan Hawke as an actor.
yes,
I think that he's someone who really understands the craft that he
yeah,
puts in every day. Just hearing him talk about his process
yeah,
and how he works in this industry, whatever the department that is, I find it fascinating. And so I always think it's such a pleasure to watch him on screen. And this is really different from the kind of characters that we're used to seeing play. Often you see him play this really charming character, someone who's
yeah,
obviously good looking and is a bit suave, and obviously he's been diversifying a lot of his roles over the years, and,
yeah,
and this is probably the one that kind of like makes more of a detour from what he's used to doing.
sure,
So for me, that was quite nice. But equally, I would have no problem taking him off the list for someone else. I mean, I said one thing that I misspoke on something. I said that I said all of them are sort of like at the same level. I, I take that back. I think Timothy for me, and again we've talked about this.
yeah,
I think he's the standout. I think he will win. Everyone else, I think they're all fighting for the same space, and they're all very good. These four in the cacategory,
yeah.
or the ones that we will mention later. And such.
So tell me,
I
like,
mean, I
which
have
names?
Joel Edgerton is an obvious one for me in Train Dreams.
Mm,
I think he was absolutely incredible in that film. I
mm,
also think he's one of those actors that deserves Oscar recognition. If not for stuff that he's done in the past, I'm sure he's going to come up with something that will put him in that conversation because he is one of those really talented actors. I always think of like guys like Joel Edgerton, Paul Dano, a few of these
mm,
people who have not been at the back end of getting these big awards, but who have the talent to get those awards. Just put them in the right vehicle and they will
hmm.
get that sort of
Shine.
award. So I think he's definitely one of the names that I have. Another one that I also thought of was Paul Mescal for Hamnet.
That's supporting.
That would be supporting.
He was nominated in supporting, so
So
we can
so
talk.
so I'm confused about that because then
It's about
no, confused because no, because I have one name here that I'm not sure which category it
fine,
would fall in.
which name?
Jesse Plemons.
Yeah, that's difficult because he's been nominated both as a lead and
Why
in
did I
some
make it so
things. I
confusing?
know, I know. But look, Jesse Plemons potentially, I would see him as a lead.
Okay,
Uh,
I would put him. So
okay,
okay, in that case, I would put him on that category as well. I have Joel. I have
Jesse.
Jesse. I have Dwayne the Rock
Yes, yes,
Johnson,
I have him too.
and then I have an outside the box performance that no one spoke about. No one cared about the film, and I understand why. But I thought I think he's a brilliant actor, and I think
Pedro Pascal. Oh, he's always
no,
performative,
no,
like Mark
Jonathan
Ruffalo.
Majors, Magazine Dreams.
Ah,
I thought the movie was intense, weird, It went in various directions that I was not
Yeah.
expecting. So I didn't really quite know how I felt about it once I finished.
Hmm.
But one thing I was certain was that Jonathan Majors really delivered an absolute banger of a performance. A very complicated character, lots of layers. And I think he's just one of those really talented actors that, unfortunately, because of mistakes that he's done, that he is and will continue to pay the price.
Mhm.
Will probably leave him of working in big productions for a while.
Sure.
I know. I think I'm under the impression that Hollywood and the
Yeah.
fans are starting to allow him back in the room again. But I think Magazine Dreams is one of those films that he just really delivers a performance that I would include in any conversation about acting.
I think I remember you mentioning the movie. We do agree with Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I thought he was great, and I think we have the superior Safdie brother. It stands out obviously. So I would add in this category Lee Byung-hun as and he was actually my number one, my pick for best
Wow.
performance in 2025
Mhm.
as a lead actor, and also August Deal in The Disappearance of Joseph Mengele. For someone who hates biopics, I think, and someone who thinks what Gregory Peck did in 1977 or 1978 was a bit, well, very over the top. I think this is a terrific performance, and if you haven't seen that movie, I would urge you to. It's very very good.
Can we? Sorry, because I know we're going to make this even longer, but
Sure.
bring down this to me. What movie is this? I've
The
never heard.
Disappearance of Joseph Mengele.
Wh-
My review will be published soon, so you'll be
Okay,
able to.
who directed it? Tell me a bit more about it.
It's a Russian director, so I won't attempt
Pronounce the name, yeah.
to say his name, but it's essentially the story of Joseph Mengele after World War II, and it's a deeper portrayal about some aspects of Germany and the remnants of what happened, and the reaction to Eichmann's capture in 1960, and also to how his name was able to, be under the radar or not picked up
Okay,
when all the names were popping up. You see him traveling to Germany in the 1950s under his real name.
interesting.
So it's very an interesting performance in Paranoia. He actually comments the fact that Gregory Peck doesn't
Mhm.
address Gregory Peck, that Gregory Peck will play him in a movie, and that he's very upset about that.
That's cool.
So I thought, I was like, it was for a very serious movie. It was one moment that I was like, kind of like Nelson from The Simpsons pointing and laughing. But it's a very interesting movie and a very, very good performance. And Lee Byung-hun in No Other Choice, and we'll talk about the snub later. I think
Mhm.
he's just terrific in it. And look, I think if we bring back to the best actor in the leading role from this list, I would say the actual nominees, Wagner Moura should win, regardless.
Okay.
And I still believe he will win because I believe Timbo will pay for the sins of the father if the father is Josh Safdie.
Okay.
Um, as we know of the whole controversy around the movie, I think he will end up paying for the bill. But you would think Shale
Shy.
will win,
Yeah, I
and
think
do you
so.
think he should win?
Yeah, no doubt about it. It was definitely my favorite performance of this category.
And this is a perfect segue to actually the best writing, because we covered some stories here, and if you look at best original screenplay, I mean we already talked about uh, three movies with Marty Supreme, which again I agree. I think it was an interesting idea and an interesting concept, and it was very well developed. Sentimental value, we already addressed at least 50% of the cast. I think the dialogue and the writing is fantastic in this movie. Sinners, again, it's the story and the whole auteur angle of Ryan Coogler that plays in the movie's favor. We now get to the other two nominees, and one of them is Blue Moon. And we talk about Ethan Hawke, and I think this is a great opportunity for you to elaborate on other aspects of the movie.
Okay, so just to pick up on Blue Moon, one of the things I absolutely loved was definitely the screenplay. In particular, the way that the dialogues were written, I thought was really smart, witty, funny. It was also a nice introduction to an amazing period of the United States, in particular around show business and this industry here of musicals. We're focusing a lot on these three key historical figures around musicals, with Lorenzo Hart, played by Ethan Hawke, and then obviously Richard Rogers, played by Andrew Scott, who many thought was potentially a snub
Hmm.
due to his performance. And then one of the later partners of Rogers, Oscar Hammerstein II. So I, for one, uh, love musicals. I didn't quite like them all the way from the beginning. As a kid, I wasn't really into them. Aside from maybe the Blues Brothers, there wasn't really that many musicals that I loved watching. But over the years, I kind of grew into it, and now I'm happy to say that I really like them. And perhaps Stephen Sondheim
Hmm.
was one of the main key factors for that. And just a little note: Sondheim shows up in this film as a little toddler,
All right.
so he's like Hammerstein's apprentice,
Oh, nice.
which is quite like a nice, lovely note. And I guess part of the magic of the film for me was introducing me to all these things that I didn't know, and how
Yes.
these people came together and worked on some
To create
incredible work.
something. Yeah.
Exactly, and Oklahoma being one of the main things. In fact, this movie picks up that particular period in life. Oklahoma's had its debut.
Hmm.
They're waiting for the reviews to come out. And basically, the character played by Ethan Hawke, Lawrence Hart, he's essentially, living in jealousy and very bitter because he's seeing his former partner now opening up a new collaboration with this other guy,
Yeah.
Hammerstein, and they're going at it with huge success, with thunderous success,
Yes.
with the debut of Oklahoma. And so all these things for me were new. I had no idea about
The
any of that.
creation and the whole thing.
And so I think that's one of the beauties about cinema is often telling these stories for people who are not as educated as I am in this particular instance, which is why. And so let me just this small segue, which is one of the reasons why I've always been very tolerant. I know this is not a biopic, but that's one of the reasons why I've always been so tolerant of biopics.
But I was about to say, like, I respect if you take an angle, if you take an attitude, if you take something like, I know this is a very out there example, but Amadeus. Like, even the way
Yeah,
you see the like, it is a biopic, whether you like it or not, but it's very well made because it goes with a different angle. It doesn't fall into the same old
same
mold.
structure like we've seen with Springsteen, for instance.
And that's exactly my point when it comes to biopics. I'm not against them, but for example, why haven't they, as far as I know, nobody has ever made a biopic, and I forget the name of the woman who went up against the Rockefeller Empire, and she challenged the whole empire. Nobody has ever made a movie about that, but it's a true story, and I actually read the book, and I'm like, wow, they never really bothered on this. Why? It's a story worth telling. Very few people know them.
Is that why you're so angry about biopics?
No, because I'm angry that I don't have the funds to actually make them myself. Otherwise, people would know what good cinema is. Absolute cinema. Scorsese would go out, and I would replace him as the absolute cinema guy. No, man. I think, look, it's an interesting story, and I don't know if you know it, but Oklahoma was my grandmother's favorite movie, and so we actually, many years ago, we actually got her a DVD player, and one of the 3 movies we got her on DVD, which was at the time still before Blu-ray, was Oklahoma.
Mhm.
So she was very, very excited to see the movie in premium quality. So yeah, that's something that actually attracts me to give this one a shot.
Mhm.
I haven't seen it just because there's no time to see everything you want.
Yeah, of course.
So there's nothing against this. Speaking of musicals, and one thing that I'm very happy about the Oscars this year is the complete shutdown of
Wicked.
Wicked. Yes.
I agree. I mean, listen, last year when we were having this discussion, Wicked was top tier for me. I loved
Yes.
it. Wicked Part 1.
Yes.
I thought it was incredible. Loved both of them. They were fantastic. I find them, well, Cynthia Erivo in particular, I find her an absolute phenom of an entertainer. Oh, I don't know why you're laughing.
Because she's playing Dracula, and even yesterday I
Yeah.
saw the end, I was like,
I'm sure.
she would be Nosferatu. I look at her and I see Nosferatu.
I'm sure she's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Sarah Snook played the Dorian Gray, did the
Yes.
Dorian Gray story. Same premise, and not same premise, but same formula. Let's say.
Yes, but Sarah
Because they're
Snook is someone that
What,
is talented, and,
you don't
and
think Cynthia is talented?
I think she is, but she scares the living shit out of me.
Okay, but don't confuse your personal feelings towards someone versus their actual.
No, I even shared with you a video of her singing
know,
a
I
cover
know.
of Midnight Train to Georgia, and I was like, if you forget everything else, she is talented, then I'll give you that. I think the movie is
So that's
just
what we're talking about. We're
your
just talking
talent,
about
sure.
talent.
But that doesn't give people
sheer
views.
talent.
Like, if I say yes, sir.
I find her incredible.
Yeah.
She this year, I think the whole film was very disappointing. Everyone from Cynthia to Rihanna and Jonathan Bailey was an absolute
But
disaster.
not Jeff Goldblum. He's always great.
No, he was, everything was terrible. So yeah, I was rooting for the film to do good, but I have no problem joining your quorum here.
The hate bandwagon.
Yeah, it's fine.
Come along, friend.
Yeah.
We have cookies. And speaking of the last nominee, and a shocker to me, in the absence in other areas, it was just an accident. Like the shocker is that it's not nominated in other categories, and at
Like
least
director, for
some
instance.
recognition for Jafar Panahi. It's great that he's recognized here. I think for someone who risks his life and
Literally.
risking and risking not risking. It's certain that if he ever sets foot in Iran again, he's gonna be arrested, to actually make this movie, much like last year with the Seed of the Sacred Fig. And I know we have I have an acquaintance, but she's your friend and colleague who's Iranian and is a bit more critical than perhaps we are on the recent output of Iranian cinema, not from a political standpoint, but from an artistic one. I think these movies, yes, maybe I look like a little hick when that goes to see Superman movie, like or Typo Man. That's a reference to the Lawnmower Man, Stephen King. No, but I feel like maybe that's how maybe Iranian people will look at me and some other members of the cinephile community, if you will, who, oh, you're excited about this, cool, just because of the way the movies are made. And I think this may detract a bit if I put too much emphasis on shit. What the guy, you're watching a movie and you're thinking, how did this get made? Not for a wrong reason, but how the hell were they allowed to create this, right? And I think that by itself, it's very difficult to separate that from the story, right? Because at least I am, and I'm a very simple-minded person, so I get very like, whoa, how you see a scene and you see some things that are like, wow, were there like officials controlling this? Where there's someone around the corner? And I mean, you still pay attention to the story, but you get so caught up on the whole context of what happened shooting it, as opposed to what's happening, that it's very easy to elevate Iranian cinema to just because of that. I think still, even with this positive bias, the movie is terrific. And I think this recognition here happens mostly because of the omissions in other categories. But I know you've watched the movie, and I know you enjoyed it as well.
I loved it. I mean, I didn't even think for a second in the beginning of the movie all of the elements around it politically. I know it's, on one hand, it's, how could you not? But I guess for me, I was just like, I just want to watch the movie. I've heard really good things about it, came with good reviews. I think at that point when I watched it, I knew it was up for all the conversations regarding films. I'm pretty sure I knew that.
Well, you knew at least it won the Palme d'Or.
Exactly. And so I think for me, it made it like mandatory viewing. So I went in from that lens. I think it was only after I saw the movie that everything started to sink in. Obviously, also because a lot of the film reflects in the current state of things in Iran, and the connection that it has with its most recent past. I thought it was incredible. The story did remind me a little bit of that Roman Polanski film from the mid-90s, I think, The Death of the Maiden, with Sigourney Weaver and Ben Kingsley, just because it sort of has a little bit of those same elements of the same kind of premise.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen variations of that story told time and time again, and I can think of several of them. I still think the work does stand out.
Oh, 100%. I didn't mean that as a diss, saying like,
no.
Yeah,
Understood. But it's very interesting to hear about your experience, because which is terrific, and I know you are aware of things, you are on top of things. But to me, I think I always refrain. It was actually one of the reviews I wrote that took the longest to edit, just because I was like, shit, this is like 90% of the review is giving context about how the movie was made in Iran, not about the actual movie. It's just really, oh yeah, and they actually shot a movie.
Because it's also super interesting, and it helps you to understand as well what went behind it. I guess in some ways, you even value more the film once you know what the kind of work that goes into it. And it's actually funny. I go back to the days where we had DVDs and you would have all those extras with behind
Yes,
the scenes, the bloopers, the production, all that stuff. And after watching a lot of that, well, at least I always felt like I looked at the films with a different lens.
sure.
And sometimes maybe if I was to review the film again, I would add that into context. I felt the same way about Frankenstein, for instance, when I saw the 45-minute special on Netflix. It basically explained a little bit more what went behind it. I thought it was quite an interesting thing to bring
To
into the
bring,
table. Yeah.
and it's a great segue to the adapted screenplay category where Frankenstein is nominated. Look, I'm gonna give it to you straight. I think Guillermo del Toro peaked with Mimic in 1997 or something, and to me, Guillermo del Toro is like a good Guillermo del
You
Toro
don't
movie.
like Pan's Labyrinth?
No, a good Guillermo del Toro movie to me, it's like a solar eclipse, and like a solar eclipse, and this is not an original. You shouldn't look at it directly. This is John Oliver
No.
talking about Don Johnson's career. By the way, it's not an original thought,
No.
but yeah, I mean
Don
Frankenstein.
Johnson, that's so mean.
Yeah, it was because it was about the oil boom, a TV show that premiered years ago, and he was talking about a TV show about Don Johnson, or starring Don Johnson.
Because he's doing some interesting stuff now.
Don
as
Johnson
well.
is great. People
Yeah.
should appreciate the legend that he is, just like they should appreciate Tom Selleck more. But neither of them are in Frankenstein, and I think, look, to me, Guillermo del Toro's movies are just something I have no interest in watching. Frankenstein has been told time and time again, and we're now witnessing something that we've seen in the 1990s after Francis Ford Coppola directed Dracula, Dead and Loving It. No, his
Bram
own,
Stoker's,
yeah. And then Kenneth Branagh with Coppola producing the Frankenstein, and that flopped, so they didn't carry out. And now there's a new movie coming out about the Bride of Frankenstein, starring Jesse Buckley and Christian Bale.
I am so excited about that film.
I mean, look, fine. There's another Frankenstein movie out. Does this warrant a screenplay nomination for a story that we've seen? Does the movie add something new? And this is the question for you. Why nominate, granted, it's an adaptation of a novel that was written centuries ago. But the question is, what does Guillermo del Toro bring to the table that wasn't there already?
That's a fair question. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard to argue with that. I've not read the book. I've seen the 90s version, the Kenneth Branagh one, obviously years ago.
Yes.
I find these two versions very different, even though they share the same core, I guess. I found this a bit more, well, no, certainly a lot more interesting. Some of the tweaks that they've made to the script, um, perhaps not that significant. I'm thinking particularly of the relationship between Mia Goth's character with Oscar Isaac versus how is it meant to be like in the actual book? Because apparently, I think in the book and in the original, well, in the Kenneth Branagh movie, I think the actress, or rather that female role, she's in love with Victor Frankenstein, in a relationship with Victor Frankenstein.
It's pronounced Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. Yeah. Instead of being with the brother. And so like there's like little tweaks here and there. Ultimately, listen, I'm not when I judge the movie Frankenstein,
yes.
I am not so much thinking about the writing that went into it. I'm thinking more about the performances, the visual side of things, the production value, all that stuff.
I was about to say something that the screenplay, it's the nuts and bolts of a movie, which is a perfect joke about Frankenstein. Sorry.
Yeah, well, you said it.
Yeah, it's out there now, so deal with it. It's like jokes are like farts, you know. Sometimes, yeah. And speaking of farts, Begonia, something that puzzles the mind. Again, Yorgos Lanthimos, and a remake that shouldn't exist. I know a lot of people praise the movie without having seen the original. This is something. Fine, okay. I think it. And speaking of changes and screenplays and originals, I think when you look at something that, fine, Frankenstein was last adapted in 94, maybe something was adapted after that, and it's an old novel. You were talking about a movie that was released 20 years ago, and it's terrific. And from my understanding, they changed nothing. They added COVID as like a coat of paint to disguise or make it pass as somewhat original work. I think the original movie, and granted, it helps the fact that we're going through the waves and the hype of Korean culture. We have been for probably over 10 years. And so it adds that layer of distance and, kind of like, I don't know, it's not deja vu, but kind of like a surrealist approach, because you are exposed to so much Korean culture, but at the same time, some of it still feels alien to you. So it's kind of like a surreal thing that adds to the experience of watching Save the Green Planet.
Was this another pun that we intended with the alien?
No, because I'm not spoiling the movie, like you did.
Or
So
anything. I mean, that's the whole premise. Is she or is she not?
yes, that's correct, of course. And when we don't know, so it's not. No, it wasn't a pun.
Yeah.
See, it's like farts. Sometimes they let go, and you have no control for them. But I think, look, you've seen Begonia. I've seen the original one. You mentioned about Jesse Plemons, and you obviously will have a chance to talk about this movie multiple times. As a screenplay, to me, like when they adapted those, what was it, the Knives Out movies, like
Mhm.
best original screenplay. First, it's not, because this is a copy paste from all the Agatha Christie novels. Second, what does it bring to the table? Even an adapted screenplay from movies that were already adapted, what does it bring to the
I
table?
mean, I think it sparks up a conversation for one. I mean, I didn't see the original one, so you might
Yes.
say, okay, but why bring this one in when you already had the original that did the exact same thing? I can't really talk about that in length because I just don't know. I've
Yes,
not
fair
seen
enough.
it. But ultimately, especially as someone who works as a journalist and
Yes.
who's surrounded by lots of people who are conspiracy, not surrounded as in I deal with a lot of people who are conspiracy
Really?
theorists who, I mean, man, the amount of times that I have people coming over, so, oh, you work for this network? Oh, so tell me about this, tell me about that. You're spreading fake news about vaccines. You're
I
doing,
thought people who work with
no, no, no,
you.
no, no, no,
Oh,
no, no.
people who.
No, no,
Oh,
I
got it.
just feel
Yeah,
like I'm
yeah.
an easy target for a lot of people who have
You are.
conspiracy theories, who had something to say about the vaccines. I mean, ultimately, listen, even in our own personal lives, we're surrounded by these things.
Yeah.
So I don't need to tap into my work. It just
For sure.
escalates things in a different way. So I saw a lot of that, a lot of what my life has been since 2020, sort of like encapsulated into this film. A lot of these characters really felt in some ways,
Relatable
yeah,
in
man.
some way.
I had a guy like Jesse Plemons not long ago giving me like a whole spiel during a wedding, and I just made
Not
my
yours,
best
I hope.
effort. No, 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 no. But it was kind of a weird one, and again, like you think these people are like caricatures and they don't actually exist. I can tell you,
They're very real.
they're very real. So I sort of appreciated that. It made me think about some of those characters that I've met over in my life, the conversations that they've sparked, and really the ongoing conversation that we're still having 5 or 6 years later.
Yes.
So I thought that was quite cool. You're saying they haven't really they've done it exactly as it was. No, I mean the tweaks were a bit more contemporary because they're picking up on something very specific, like
Fine.
COVID, as you said.
Yeah,
Eh,
but the basis of it's the same thing. It's
But that
pharmaceutical.
but that not upsets you, but that pulls a nerve or that pulls a string because you have seen it. But for someone like me and for
Fine.
many others like me who've not seen it, that's not really going to be.
And that's why I'm asking, like, what worked for you, and you have clearly two things that work for you that I could never. Well, first of all, I cannot unseen a movie I've seen, and you haven't seen it yet, and we're not in the same line of business. I don't spread misinformation. Uh, no, jokes, man.
We're gonna cut this.
We're gonna
off,
get
right?
this part.
Yeah.
No, jokes, man. Look, so obviously I don't have that experience. Like, I know these people exist. I'm one of them. No, but I've never been the target of such conversations
Sure.
with the same background. So I completely get where you're coming from. And this is not me saying, oh, Begonia is shit. Tell me why you liked it. No, I have my own opinion, but I want to know from someone whom I know already that has a different starting point than my very own.
Mhm.
So I would suggest we take this offline and you watch the 2003 version,
Sure,
and
sure.
we
I'll
can
be open to
cover it. And speaking of adaptations and challenges, and we'll talk about the winner in the other category as well, which we didn't. One battle after another. I think Paul Thomas Anderson once again does the impossible, which is to adapt a Thomas Pynchon novel. And this is something that people from all spectrums or all over the political spectrum got the movie wrong, which is, oh, this is campy, or this attacks the far right. No, I think it's an equal opportunity offender. It strikes everyone. And at the same time, if you ever read, and many people criticize Sean Penn's character, to me, that's more telling about the fact that they've never tried to read, and I say try because they're hard as fuck to read, the Thomas Pynchon novels. I couldn't finish Vineland, which is the novel that inspired this movie. So to actually successfully adapt not once but twice, because if you remember correctly, Inherent Vice 2014, also directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, was also a Pynchon adaptation. It shows a level of an intellectual level that's far beyond my capability, and therefore I see it as something as challenging. And to me, someone who succeeds not once, as I mentioned, but twice, deserves all the praise. And that's all I'm going to say about this side of the screenplay and the praise for one battle after another. I think you agree that also to have such a vast story, so well built, is a credit to PTA.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I have really no notes to what you just said. Honestly, I just think it, I'll just probably remove the cursing for our younger audiences out there.
My cursing or
you're cursing?
Oh wow, I'll bleep it.
Just, but no, honestly, yeah, I think you're on point there. And for me, as I'm sure it is for you, obviously, just given what you said, is really the standout adapted screenplay here. I think one that will cause a ruckus and that will probably uh, fight for, I guess, for some stage time is Hamlet, maybe, because that movie's been really making the rounds and getting a lot of people to root for it. The source material for a lot of those who have read it, they say that the movie was quite well represented, or well represented the actual book.
Yes.
So I'm not entirely sure how it stands out in the actual award circuits.
Look, to give you an objective view, not on Hamlet, but on Hamlet's performance, what we've seen is that the movie picked a lot of heat, right? When it was first screened at the movie festivals. It has kind of died down a bit, especially like most of these movies, once they're in their own little ecosystem of the critics, they're very successful. But when rubber meets road, i.e., when they get exposed to audiences, that's a whole different story. Case in point, The Smashing Machine, and that's what we've been seeing, right? And to the point, I think, look, the novel is the novel. I just think that the movie is very boring. For the first, it's very emotional, and the third act, chef's kiss. I just think before you get there, there's no the buildup takes way too long with no specific cause. And we can agree to disagree on this one. But I think, and I've seen Heaven's Gate 3 times, so that tells you a lot about my threshold for boring stuff. But I think, yeah, Hamlet is just, it is, in fact, because I ran over a couple of glimpses over the novel. I didn't read it fully. I think it's very emotional and very well written. And I think Chloe Zhao is especially good, as we've seen with Nomadland. The thing, like her
and
take,
the Eternals.
Yes, also an adaptation of the book The Eternals by Steve Guttenberg. Yes, I think yeah. Look, the screenplay is solid. I think the performances in the third act sell
That's
the movie,
what makes
right?
Yeah.
And we will have a chance to talk about that and Train Dreams as well. But I would love to hear your thought on Train Dreams, because it seems like that typical frontier movie that's very.
I can tell you all about. I mean, I'm not sure why we watched it.
Accident.
But I just remember I was exhausted that day. I was really tired, and I kept dipping in and out of the film. Nothing to do with the movie itself. It could have been Die Hard in full blast, and I would still dip in and out just because I was that tired. But actually, if anything, there was something about the movie that kept me kept me up and going and trying. There was always something that kept pulling me in.
Hmm.
And it wasn't just about Joel Edgerton's
Yes.
performance, or even Felicity Jones, who I also thought
Yes.
was great, but Joel is the standout. But everything about it really. I mean, you just mentioned No Man's Land, and I just remember a lot of it was like these really long takes,
Yeah.
scenic, beautiful. The silence plays as much of a role as a bit of music
Yeah.
in a scene. The acting is not so much about loud expressions and body language, but more so about the little nuanced
Yeah.
exchanges of looks, the pauses, all that stuff. And so you really get to appreciate all that in Train Dreams.
Mhm.
In many ways, like a film like Hamlet, it explores really thought-provoking themes, including obviously grief. Um, it also showcases a slice of American history as well, which I think
Yeah.
is also quite interesting to see. So yeah, in some ways, the script is almost minimalistic in a lot of parts, because
Yes.
the movie is steady and slow for a very long time. But at the same time, through nothing, it says a lot.
Yeah.
So I actually thought that was one of the main strengths. And actually, you know, and I sort of feel bad about it, but when I gave my rating to the film, I gave it a 4 stars or 4.5, knowing fully that I deserved 5 stars,
Oh wow.
because it was just that kind of film to be one of the best of the year. It was just that I couldn't appreciate it the same way that I did with other films, because my energy levels were just so low. But I remember
I get it.
standing next to my wife, and she was sobbing like a baby, and that also kind of like gave me some perspective on it as well, because she's a very sensitive person, and I,
So are you.
well, I would say so as well, and we're very much in sync.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see those emotions flourish. In fact, I think when a movie kind of like talks to you in that way and brings all these emotions
Mm.
out, it really makes it quite a special experience.
Sure. No, I'm 200%. And I haven't seen it, so I won't comment. What I will say is that either Begonia or Frankenstein. And speaking of adding something, I would add No Other Choice, which is a movie that retools. And again, if we're talking about this, is actually I don't know, counter argument, but it's a Korean adaptation of an American novel and a French movie. So
Wow.
so there you go. It's the other way around. But I think again, we would need to get an A/B testing and remove like we need to remove that bias and the impact of Korean culture in to actually well have a pure assessment
Mhm.
of the movie. On the in this categories like predicted winners and preferences. Well,
Okay, so for original screenplay, it's a tough one. I would maybe go for. Ooh, I don't know. My eyes are looking at Sinners, um,
which is the predicted winner?
but I thought it was a great surprise to see it was just an accident, even if it didn't feel like it was. Again, because I saw glimpses of so
Yeah,
many other things. It's like Sinners for me felt fresh. It felt like picking up all these different genres
sure,
and mashing them up in a nice, unique, fresh way.
sure.
It was just an accident. It didn't feel as fresh, but certainly it felt gripping, the kind of thing that leaves you on in the edge
Yeah,
of your seat.
yeah.
So I think maybe those would be my two favorites, I would say.
I would say Sentimental Valley for me,
Okay.
but Sinners will be the one winning, which is the split I'm
Yeah.
predicting. When it comes to Best Adapted Screenplay, I mean, it starts and ends with Paul Thomas Anderson, who should take a clear shot
Sure, I
this year,
won't. No
and that.
notes.
So with that, we tackle the top 5 Best Picture nominees in alphabetical order.
F1 for the win. Let's
Begonia,
just finish this.
the F1, yeah, right.
F1.
I mean, look, we already talked a bit about Begonia and Frankenstein, and obviously we can get into a bit more detail on Hamlet and Marty Supreme. Sorry, yes, on Hamlet and Marty Supreme. But I think the one that stands out here is F1. And look, I think first and foremost, I will say that it's interesting to understand which movie would have taken this slot. I think it was just an accident. This is the slot that was actually reserved to that movie, had it not been nominated. I also think that this highlights the battle that we have this year in the Best Picture race, which is between Sinners and One Battle After Another, where you have on one side the audience and the connection, and whether you like it or not, both are movies made by Warner. One of them is a critical success, but commercially, it was nobody expected that. And that's Sinners. And on the other one, you have a movie that's championed by critics. So you have this gap, the way I see it.
I mean, Sinners is still championed by critics as well, wouldn't you
Not
say?
as much as like it's more yes, but you see the backup is, look, this movie was made with so little money and made such a big splash, whereas you took 200 million to make One Battle After Another, it didn't turn a profit.
Right.
So this is the divide, right? Whereas and then it's the simplicity both movies tend to tackle or tend to be political, and so there's that divide. And this is relevant to see F1, which you could clearly say, well, this is not the first Joseph Kosinski director or the first Joseph Kosinski joint that made it to Best Picture category. We have Top Gun Maverick. And my question is, what's the difference? And a lot of people got very upset with F1. Yes, I get it. It shouldn't be here. And
Hold on, you don't see the difference between F1 and Top Gun?
look, I think they're both entertaining movies. Yes, this one is weaker. Yes, granted.
I mean, but it's not just weaker, it's a complete, I mean, it's a solid, entertaining film, nothing
Yes.
else. But you know, Top Gun, you know, as soon as I left that cinema room, I completely forgot about F1. Top Gun is still in my mind.
Fine, fair
I
enough.
can still think of it. I will want to revisit it
Yes.
for sure. It's a movie that I think will continue to have like a cult status. Whereas for me, F1 almost felt like a bit of a propaganda piece to try and get more viewership into F1. Make this. I mean, I personally don't like F1 to begin with. Like for me, motorsport overall,
Sure.
I don't like it. But you know, I saw Ayrton Senna's documentary. I thought was incredible.
Yeah, but that's different.
There's other films around motorsport that you like that I like because
Days of Thunder.
no, I'm thinking about like Rush, for instance. I thought it was quite a good film to watch.
Great movie, great movie.
So there's a few good examples out there. I mean, F1, I just thought it was really like, yeah, sure, it's fine. It's like it's a fun movie to watch.
Yes.
Nothing else. I would never put it in the same category as a Top Gun. And aside from obviously the two of them sharing, you know, some of the staff or whatever. Yes, they share the same director, and they're both blockbusters. But ultimately, I think F1 is just really a crappy film that would never deserve the light
But you
of day
just
in
said
this
it was
category.
entertaining, and this goes back to what the Oscars want to
So
be,
is Mission
right?
Impossible.
Yes.
I would much rather have a weak Mission Impossible than F1.
Yeah, but that's your Tom Cruise bias. Look, I get it, and I'm not arguing for the movie to be here, not by a long shot. It wasn't featured nowhere near my top 10 list. I think this one is still like, what is going to happen to the Oscars as the rights are sold to YouTube? What is going to happen to Apple and the
Get
new
Superman in.
ecosystem?
I don't care. I don't want this film here.
Fair enough. Look, I mean, we just
hate
have
it
to
so
deal.
much.
We just have to. No, but you didn't when you watched it. That's the thing.
I thought it was okay.
Hey, it's a solid 4-star entertainment blockbuster movie.
I thought it was okay. Sure.
Yes.
And here, but there's only room for five or whatever you would find in your mind to create space for like a higher rating, whatever that is.
Fine.
Big
Look,
unicorn.
what I'm saying is, if you saw instead of F1, you saw Avatar, whatever, Depressed Whales, or what is the new one?
Yes.
What was it called? Lighting Fluid,
Ash and Fire, I think.
Ash and Fire. I don't know. Jim Carrey.
I don't know.
No, I don't know. But Avatar 3, let's call it. If you saw Avatar 3 here, would you be happier?
No.
Fair enough. So, but that's the point. They need to shoehorn, and this 10. You know that the Academy has yo-yoed with the number of nominees for the last
So is this
20-something years. What I'm saying is you're shoehorning 10 movies that shouldn't be here. And even when you didn't shoehorn 10 movies, you had crappy and mediocre titles getting in.
but you have other films that you could easily put in.
Oh, I know I do, and I know which ones I'd put in. But the point is, this was, whether you like it or not, a move by Apple and a move by blockbuster, solid blockbuster entertainment. But if you look back at titles like The Towering Inferno and Airport, even when they had 5 nominees, even when they had stellar movies to pick that were released in 1970, 1974, they still went with these ones because this is big, this is massive. These were, and this is
those films have a place in memory. Do you think this film will have a place in memory
man,
aside from being the end of a silly joke?
no, I don't. Such as Airport, which the only thing I saw was a Portuguese movie reviewer who said, "This is my favorite movie released in 1970." I was like, I had a lobotomy too once. Man, I don't think Airport belongs in anywhere. It's just big because it made money. And these days, the box office is dying, and anything that makes a splash will be present here. Now, they couldn't very well nominate Avatar because now, like, they want James Cameron to drop it and to make the Hiroshima movie, which I'm completely on board. I think people should stop subsidizing Avatar so we can get his Hiroshima movie. Also, I'm very conscious of the fact that he hasn't made a decent movie in over 20 years. That was True Lies, his last good movie. And I'll stand by that. The point is, they need to reward commercial success, and this is it. Sinners as well, but F1 wasn't.
So why not Weapons then? I find Weapons a far more interesting film than F1.
Man, there's probably I agree.
And you're getting, like, I'm not entirely sure what kind of nods did F1 get in any other category.
And probably technical categories: best sound, best animated feature. No, that was Sinners. That was also nominated in best documentary.
Best. I just don't see, because even under the light of, sure, we want to reward films that make a lot of money in the box office. I feel like there's other alternatives that would fill in that gap first before we get into F1. And altogether, really, I mean, I would even scrap that. But I think you and I will probably agree on that front, of course, because we seem to agree on that. But yeah, I mean, I just find it super silly. And honestly, the one thing I would say, I was sort of like hoping to say this at one point in this conversation. Oscars for me, this conversation about the Oscars and the awards, I would always really care about the nominations, the snubs, and all that stuff. I would get really upset if someone that I really liked wasn't factored in, or if someone won that I didn't think really deserved it. And now I'm happy that I feel like I'm taking a step back and I'm a lot less emotional because I feel like I figured out how the Oscars work and why I should distance myself from them. Because in a different, talk to me 5 years ago with F1 on this list, I would be going ballistic.
But look, we do agree on that. And the point of this is always, as we mentioned, to highlight some of the other titles which you've seen, like Magazine Dreams and the disappearance of Joseph Mengele. I think that's the whole point. And I know, well, that's why I invite you, because we together, we cover a decent chunk of movies released in a year. This is more of a state of play where I agree with you. Like, there's that divide between the critics and between what audiences want. And that's the Sinners versus one battle after another, with the caveat that critics also liked Sinners.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of had the ugly ducking status, especially when the likes of Rolling Stone, which shouldn't issue comments on cinema, but they do nonetheless, left that movie out, and that caused an outrage and race to the arms to defend and protect Sinners. When it comes to F1, I'm with you, right? It shouldn't be here. I can think of other movies that would belong on this list, but beyond that, I think the fun fact is that when you look at the odds, the bookmakers' odds, it actually has better odds of winning Best Picture than Train Dreams. So it's not at the bottom. Ooh, it would be funny to see it win. When it comes to the other top 5, like alphabetical order nominees, I mean, Begonia, I already told you my feelings about that, and Frankenstein as well. These are titles I don't feel need to be retold. And there were enough great titles in 2010, in 2025 to actually fill the 10 gaps. Hamnet, I'll stand by what I said, it's pushed by 2 strong producers, Spielberg and Sam Mendes. It has a very strong director who made history, much like Jane Campion, by being the female director nominated twice. She's a great storyteller. It has great performances. Mm-hmm. It's a movie that lacks, to me, any kind of, it's a struggle to get through the first 2 acts, but then the payoff is there, right? Marty Supreme, again, I think I've said pretty much what I had to say about it. I gave the movie 3 stars, so it wasn't the hateful stuff that I usually dish out as if it were like made by Ari Aster. But no, that he was actually the producer of Begonia. So when I found out about that, I was like, see, that's the sixth sense that I've developed.
Man, that just keeps adding to.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. But out of these 5 movies, like I think we went into some depth of discussion. Anything you want to add about other than F1, because we already buried it?
I don't think any of these will go to win.
No.
I think the 2 main favorites are in the second round. But I would say that out of all of these, definitely the one that I keep pushing for the most is Hamlet.
Cool.
I think the way that it brought me to an emotional state that it's, even for someone who cries frequently, I just don't think I've been in that state in a very long time. I think probably the last time that I felt that way, absolutely crushed, was when I saw Moonlight. And I'm thinking of a particular scene where you see basically is Naomi Harris led essentially a dialogue in the prison. And I was I remember being with my 2 best friends, and they kept looking to the side to check if I was okay, because I was really struggling to sort of like breathe almost. And it was almost like the same with, even worse with Hamlet. I mean, I was gasping for air. I had to cover my mouth at one point because I was crying so loud. And death is a subject that really kind of moves me and brings anxiety and whatnot. It's a very, not something that I shy away from having a conversation about, but certainly is something that brings a lot of emotions. And handling that theme along with the sense of what happens then next, the grief of it all, is just something that I find very moving. And I think they did it so well in this film. And even before you get to that payoff, which I'll get to in a second, everything else that happened beforehand, the first couple of acts, I actually really appreciated. The same way I was describing Train Dreams, those moments of silence, the camera panning, just the showing of nature, all that stuff. I thought everything was so beautiful that it was almost like watching at a beautiful canvas with some amazing artist just like stroking away, just having like the brush present to you like this beautiful painting. Every shot was absolutely beautiful. Paul Mescal and Jesse Buckley didn't need to say or do anything. You could just observe the environment and just really take it in. And so I really appreciate that. And then obviously the soundtrack as well. I think actually, I know we're not discussing soundtracks here overall as a category, but I do think it was the most beautiful soundtrack I've heard this year. And it's not that often that I'll actually listen to an entire record from start to finish of a film. And I've done that with Max Richter, which I thought was great. Having said all of this, though, I will say this when I wanted to say, like, I have something to add on the payoff on the final act. So obviously there's that epic scene that I won't reveal, even though it's already across the board splattered around social media now when you go through Instagram. But that beautiful scene that brings crowds to tears. And this is a little bit of a spoiler, but not so much one that will detract from the film. A song is played essentially, and that song has been a song that's been used many times before from Max, and it's a song called "On the Nature of Daylight." Apparently, it was written in 2004 for a documentary that was focusing on the Iraq War, I believe. I'm not entirely sure, but then that song went on to be used on several other productions. Arrival, Shutter Island, Last of Us, the TV show, the HBO TV show. And I just feel that it was such a missed opportunity to bring a new piece of original work to lift an epic scene. Because ultimately, for people like me who knew that song, and it's very hard not to know it because it's also been used across every other little clip. You put something that resembles a little bit of a sentimental piece of like dialogue, a little monologue, and all of a sudden people are putting that song just to like bring in those emotions. Because you can, I'm just picturing it. I can see like the Dumb and Dumber scene where Jim Carrey is saying, he's tired of being a nobody. You put that song in, that moment alone will leave you sort of like a bit teary, like a bit hazy. But as soon if you put that song, if you add that song to that scene, everyone's gonna be bawling.
I'll need to do that. Maybe that's an idea for an Instagram channel. Is just add that song to random movie things.
Honestly,
I'll add that to the.
I think it should, and it will work, and it will get people crying because actually Jim Carrey's delivery is so good. But it just needs something to bring that serious element to it and that sentimental value. And I think that song does it. And so for me, it felt like a bit of a cheap trick to get people to react even more. Because I think as a standalone, if you didn't even have any music around it, that was such a beautiful and heartbreaking scene to witness. If you put something original like the rest of that beautiful soundtrack that Max wrote for that film, it would work. Now, the story that I've heard is that Jessie Buckley apparently was driving around, had a playlist going on. That song came about, and she was like, "Oh, maybe we should use this song." So she kind of lobbied it to Chloe. She had never heard that song before, surprisingly, and she loved it so much that she pitched it then to Max and sent him a 20-minute voice message saying all the reasons why that song should be featured in the film. Because apparently, I think he was against it because he wanted to write something original.
Yes.
And unfortunately, they went with it. I mean, as much as that song works there, I mean, that song works for everything. You could have a laxative commercial, it's going to work. So I'm sorry, I'm going on a big rant because
no, it's all good, man.
And for me, it was a bit off-putting.
I'm with you, and I think it's great you mentioned music because I do have my 2 cents, not about Max Richter's fantastic work in Hamlet, and I'm not that fussed with or as bothered as you are, which is all good and understanding. We all have our little issues with some music, and I do have one with, for example, Marty Supreme, the cliched, what do you call it, the anachronistic usage of Forever Young and all that, and then everybody's got to learn sometime. I mean, look, it's that's what makes me believe that the movie was made for the TikTok crowd, right? And then you look at the Smashing Machine and you see Masayoshi Takanaka, you see the Alan Parsons Project, and then you see someone who's the real creative engine behind the Safdie brothers duo, because you have one brother that makes the same movie he did twice already. He makes it another time, and then you have the other brother who actually does something original and something new and something that with a creative flair. And that, to me, is where the value sits. Everything else is just, look, this is for the TikTok crowd, and there are the memes using Forever Young, and maybe now little kids will, or the Gen Z will discover Alphaville, not only the band, but also the movie.
I love that. I'm all up for it.
Yeah, I'm not. I think gatekeeping is important, and that's why people should gatekeep me, as people should gatekeep me from the likes of Begonia and your Frankensteins and your little movies, and your adaptations. Like, other people should be gatekept from other things. But when it comes to real positives in music, you see Johnny Greenwood and you see Ludwig Göransson. The battle between the two giants of this year, Sinners and One Battle After Another. And these are two fantastic titles, like bodies of work that, I mean, both the movies and the work that they did. Preach, I will. Hey. I think, especially Johnny Greenwood does it again. Ludwig Göransson, sure, it doesn't reach what we've listened last year with the Brutalist, but it's still like that, boom, the beginning, like it packs a punch. And to me, for movies that deal with music, especially Sinners, to actually have a standout original score, it's very difficult. And I'm glad you brought music up, because this is something that, as we can see, we can talk about anything or any category for hours if we're let.